Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 127. You can listen to the show wherever you get your NFC East blog podcast networks all throughout the SB Nation universe. You can also watch it on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. And if you watch or if you listen, you will see or hear the audio or visual stylings of myself. I'm RJ Ochoa from Blog and the Boys. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. BLG, happy Tuesday of week 2 to you, my friend.
RJ, it was an exciting week 1 of NFL action. So glad to have football back, other than being super stressed out, which is something you can't really relate to after week 1. But I think most NFL fans can, and that is the norm. And the 2022 Eagles season was kind of a reprieve from that in a unique way, where they just beat the crap out of everyone, and you didn't really have to suffer through the stress. But this week 1 was a nice reminder that it is not easy to win in the NFL.
Yeah. Turns out everyone is mortal. You know what I mean? And, time is fleeting and, pressure is all around us. I actually thought you were going to say when you were kind of talking about being stressed about how the Eagles are playing on Thursday Night Football this week. So that's a
also
quick turnaround.
Adding to it for sure, because I always say the lead up to week 1 is already a challenge, because you're not just previewing week 1, you're previewing the whole season. Like, the scope of the whole season is also in play. Week 2, you kind of get settled in normally, but alas, Eagles playing on Thursday in week 2, so it's a really condensed schedule here.
Yeah, like, I would not trade this time of year for anything, believe me, but it is overwhelming to deal with. Like, okay, I have to read this and I have to listen to this and I have to watch this. And then it's like all of that is just football related. And then it's like, okay, well, the Premier League was off, but now the Premier League's coming back. It's like the Houston Astros are doing really well. Philly's kind of keeping people interested, right? So like, it's just like, I wouldn't say oversaturation, but it's a lot to process. Again, the absolute best time of the year. I'm so grateful that we're here, that we have actual NFL games and things to discuss. It's better than the middle of June. But yeah, hey, it's good to talk it out and say that it's a little bit overwhelming. We'll, of course, get to the Cowboys statement, if you want to call it that, against the New York Giants. We have a new divisional order to get to, Brandon, now that we have a week of NFL action behind us. But before we do have to touch on this. This is the biggest story going on in the NFL. I mentioned it. As always, we're recording. It's currently 11:14 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday, but this episode will drop on Wednesday. And on Monday Night Football, New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers left the game after 4 snaps offensively. It did not look good. All the Twitter doctors rushed to kind of diagnose things, but as you and I sit, has been confirmed that he has a torn Achilles. I know that a lot of people have different thoughts on Aaron Rodgers. This is such a huge bummer for football. Just a really awful thing, because I think we were all really interested to see whether or not this was going to work out. This does have an impact in a football sense on the NFC East, because the division is playing the AFC East this season. And obviously at this point, none of the 4 teams have played the Jets. Obviously the Cowboys do on Sunday, though.
Really benefits the Cowboys just coming off straight from this game. It's not like the Jets have time to really even prep a new starter if they want to move on from Zach Wilson, which I think they kind of might have to consider at some point, considering he's not a good player. And
they're on a short week too, by the way. Like, in general, like, that's a difficult thing, you know what I mean? So short week and have to travel. But go ahead, sorry.
Carson Wentz, baby, he's still out there. Like, the NFC East own Carson Wentz could potentially end up there. Joe Douglas is the Jets general manager. He was obviously with Carson Wentz in Philly for, I think, 3 seasons there. So something to keep an eye on. But certainly, I think there are a lot of times in sports where people are like, oh, I feel so bad for this fan base. And I think a lot of times that's overstated. And I actually don't really feel bad, especially if it's like a brutal loss. Like, those happen. That happens. This is a very
generally don't feel bad. Like, I mean, you normally don't. Okay.
I think that phrase gets thrown a lot around. It's often thrown around too liberally. I feel bad for this other fan base. I actually feel bad for Jets fans. I mean, this sucks. it's also just not good for, I think, general NFL fan Rob Lowe hat wearing the logo. Like,
Right.
this is not entertaining to see
Right.
Aaron Rodgers not even throw a pass. He didn't even throw it. I mean, or complete a single
Yeah,
pass. He
he
threw
threw
one pass.
one. Right.
Didn't even complete a pass for the Jets. Like, that's devastating. That is absolutely, if you're a Jets fan, like, we're cursed. Like, nothing good can happen to us. It's terrible. It certainly draws a lot of intrigue out of things, especially just ahead of this matchup between a quarterback who owns the Cowboys
Right.
and Mike McCarthy of it all, getting to see that again. So we got robbed of that. And then we got robbed of a chance for the Jets to beat the Eagles for the first time ever when the Jets
Right.
and Eagles play off. I mean, obviously, it's still the possibility the Eagles can lose, but, it's not the same juice level, certainly, with Rodgers not being there. So, yeah, just certainly, think of, obviously, there's a lot of people who probably aren't upset about this from the standpoint of they don't like Aaron Rodgers, but regardless of
Right.
whether you like him or not, it's objectively just less entertaining that he's not there.
Um, you mentioned feeling bad for Jets fans. I think we've all been there. Like, for the most part, like every team, whatever sport, you've had like a player get hurt or something happen, and it's like it has just zapped like your hope and confidence and optimism in that season. I'm reminded of this time a year ago when the Cowboys were coming off the season opening loss to the Buccaneers and Dak Prescott had the thumb injury, right? We were like, well, he's out for like a month and a half. Like, there's no way it's going to happen, and we all know what did.
You were
This is
down in the dumps, man. You were like
well,
ready to call it a season. Like you
and
were,
that was just, I
yeah,
mean, again, like I'm not trying to compare the two, but that was just like he's gonna miss some time. You know what I mean? Like
right.
this is to have it happen right away. And I think the context of if you're, I know we have some younger fans, if you're a newer football fan, maybe an international fan, you don't quite know. Jets fans are notoriously, and you're from that neck of the woods, generally speaking. They're notoriously hardened, right? And they're notoriously pessimistic, and they notoriously don't believe that good things can happen to them.
Mhm.
And it did feel like, I think you would agree, that for the most part they kind of let their guard down with the Rodgers of it all, right? They allowed themselves to love again because how could you not, right? Like, it's Aaron Rodgers, he's here to save the day, and so to have that ripped out from under you in the immediate way that it did was just really jarring. And yeah, I mean, you talked about the Eagles have never lost to the Jets. The Cowboys have never beaten Aaron Rodgers at
Right.
AT&T Stadium or Cowboys Stadium. And he's obviously won the Super Bowl there with Mike McCarthy. And we saw the two play one another, if you want to call it that, with McCarthy being the coach last year at Lambeau Field. So that was kind of cool. But it was going to be really cool to see them go up against one another with nobody wearing Packers gear in that building where they won the Super Bowl together. And obviously that won't happen now.
I think the Jets will still be a respectable team, kind of like they were last year. They're not just like a cakewalk team that is going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick. But I mean, Zach Wilson is terrible. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah, quickly, because you, in all likelihood, are not going to be on TGI Football with myself and Steven Serta this week. In the aftermath of the Eagles Thursday night game, you obviously have a lot of things to get to, but the Josh Allen discourse is finally actual discourse. It felt like the national world woke up to the idea that Josh Allen is kind of hazardous with a football in his hands.
Mm.
That loss, I think we tend to put things on quarterbacks in a negative sense too much. I think we all think that loss is 100% on Josh. Like Josh, like there's no reason you should lose that game if you're the Bills.
It's pretty embarrassing. And a lot of people in my neck of the woods in terms of Twitter were saying that Josh Allen is basically just like a souped up Carson Wentz. And there's some truth to that in terms of the, erratic nature. Obviously, Allen has been better for longer. But yeah, I mean, there's some validity to that. All NFC East teams we get to play them up close this year. I think that is a game, and that is a Josh Allen quarterback who can look a lot different in each of those games. There might be a game where on the high end of that volatility, he's just awesome, and it's like 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Could also be something similar to the other way around. So that's kind of it's more volatile. I mean, everyone coming into this season liked the Bills a lot. They, by all indications, finished strong in terms of one of the best point differentials last year. Ranked, I think they might have been the number 1 overall team in DVOA heading into this season. Like a lot of positive indicators, but certainly the Josh Allen factor is a complicating thing here that can bring them down.
I think that's well said, even though I missed 10 seconds of it while I was closing the blinds in here. All right, that's enough AFC East talk. This is not the AFC East mixtape. But again, the division is one that the entire NFC East will play this coming season. But let's get to it. I mentioned we have a new divisional order. I think for the first time since the end of 2021, the Dallas Cowboys lead. I don't know. I meant to look this up. I think the Eagles led it all the way through. I mean, obviously they didn't lose their first game till forever, but they beat, was it Detroit in week 1 last year? And then they just, mounted and Dallas had lost. Like they were in first place really from the jump. So the first time in a very, very long time that the Dallas Cowboys lead the way. Shutout victory on Sunday Night Football, 40-0, obviously against another team that we'll discuss in the New York Giants. But on the Cowboy side of things, Brandon, it was very, very, very little to be upset about. Obviously, it was kind of a perfect sort of game in a lot of ways. The offense wasn't asked to do a lot, and even then, we're still pretty efficient. I haven't looked after Monday Night Football, but they were 9th in offensive DVOA. They were 6th in EPA per play offensively. So, still really efficient despite not gaudy numbers. Obviously, the defense was overwhelming for the Giants, and even obviously huge contributions on special teams. Just kind of a classic ass kicking that the Cowboys administered in front of the whole world.
It's a new level to dominating the Giants. Like they have,
Right.
I mean, they've dominated them in this series, but the final score is certainly new. Especially last year, the games were a little bit more competitive when the
both
Cowboys...
one-score games last year. Granted, the first with Cooper Rush.
And you thought, okay, maybe if this is a new Giants team, and that's what I think we were saying last week, then it has to look different this time. It didn't. It looked worse. It's the worst time. We'll get to the Giants later at the end of the show since they're last in the division here. But I mean, the game was over to me as soon as the Cowboys blocked that kick. Like I thought that's not just a hindsight thing. Obviously, it's 40-0. Like I thought that in the moment, I was like, oh, Giants definitely not losing this game after that block kick. There's just no way. They have that nice drive. Like, oh, it might be different. Whatever. Nope, not at all. Giants defense, the Cowboys defense just absolutely dominated. Guess what? Still an issue. A bad Giants offensive line. Certainly, Evan Neal is in not a good spot, looking like he's not going to make that second-year leap, and instead is just a massive bust, which is a huge issue. There's nothing redeeming to say. I mean, Cowboys made plays, but the Giants also created those plays in terms of like the Stephon Gilmore pick. Like, what's Daniel Jones even doing there? Throw that ball out of bounds. Like, what are you doing? Like, that was a horrible interception to throw. So give the Cowboys credit for making the plays. And also give the Giants not a lot of credit because they played awful on their end.
I agree with you after the blocked field goal. I mean, because it really felt like, and again, we'll get to the Giants later, but it felt like they were really just kind of punching above their weight. The Giants were on that initial possession. And so like to have that zapped and turned into points the other way. In fact, I think, one of our great writers, David Howman, he does like a 5 most important plays, from every game at our site. And number 1 on his list was the Andrew Thomas false start that was on that first drive that obviously Micah Parsons cost. And it was kind of building. And then that was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like after that, there was the sack that wasn't a sack. And then that obviously led to the blocked field goal. By the way, there's a great article in The Athletic that Saad Yousuf wrote about the kind of preparation that went into the blocked field goal, what CJ Goodwin did to kind of coach up. Obviously Wanye Thomas and Noah Igbenogany, who wasn't even on the team just a couple of weeks ago, scored the first touchdown of the year for the Cowboys. What a weird kind of world. But nevertheless, I mean, so I don't want to get into this debate right now because we'll definitely have it as the season goes along. I know you're not afraid of Dak Prescott as the term you've used. I can't think of a player. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is the answer from a Cowboys perspective that I imagine you or any NFC East fan would have to feel about Micah Parsons. Like the dude is just a monster. Like I feel like I've never seen anything like him. Like he is, we hadn't really seen a lot of him because he didn't play in the preseason, but like he only had 1 sack, but like he was responsible for so much havoc. I mean, he is, I said this in our postgame show, he's the best non-Mahomes player in the NFL right now. I mean, he's at least challenging in that discussion.
He's up there. I definitely think that, I mean, he's probably already was at this level, but certainly cementing his status at like the DeMarcus Ware kind of fear level. Like, oh man, like we have to go up against that guy. That guy's definitely going to cause some issues for us at some point here. So yeah, I mean, Micah Parsons looks great. No surprise there. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just really good.
I mean, well, I can't
really expound on it.
I thought it was really awesome to see Trayvon Diggs get really physical. That's been a knock against him, obviously, that he wasn't a physical player. He had the popped ball that was the defensive touchdown that Deron Bland took back. He had the strip at the very end. Some of that, I mean, the Giants really quit. Like, what a bunch of losers. Again, I can't wait to get to them. But incredible effort by Trayvon Diggs, obviously, to just hustle. And honestly, one of the more impressive outings that, we felt, at least on the Cowboys side of things, the Cowboys did not play Tyler Smith in this game. We had talked about that in the lead up last week. It's a long game. It was the right decision. It is still a scary and tenuous thing. But Chuma Edoga, who they signed in free agency, I mean, holy crap, dude, like respect, walking in week one, you got to go up against this, what we think is a stout, interior defensive line. I mean, and to handle things really well was really impressive.
I did want to ask you, since you brought up Dak, how you thought Dak played. I thought he missed some throws. Again, not the biggest deal, in part because they didn't even need him to play well at all. I don't even know if they needed the offense to play at all, actually. I think I was talking to Jimmy, was bringing this up on BGN radio, and he said, like, if the Giants just punted every time, if the Cowboys punted every time on like first down, they still could have won this game. It did look like Pollard looked good. Wanted to touch on him as well. That's really encouraging. I think if you're the Cowboys, coming off of the injury he did, with the 14 carries, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. But yeah, I guess, what did you make of Dak?
Had some drops from his tight ends. I think, like, if those don't happen, Tony Pollard had 2 touchdowns that were goal line touchdowns. By the way, and I made fun of this on all over the place, but like, there was all the talk of like, oh no, what are the Cowboys going to do at the goal line? And look, I'm bummed that Zeke fumbled, and I'm really hopeful that he has a great season. But like, it was so silly that anybody ever made that out to be like this massive concern. Like, they're going to score. Like, that's what they're going to do. Tony Pollard will be just fine. So, but those could have been 2 Dak Prescott touchdowns, is my point. If not for the drops from Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot had one. If I did nothing but stock ups in my stock report. If you wanted to apply any kind of stock down, it was at the tight end position. I thought Dak looks great with what he was asked to do. Mike McCarthy was a little bit conservative on 2nd and long, but for the most part was really aggressive as a play caller. I mean, it's amazing that we've gone this far and haven't talked about the offense that he called. It was a really purposeful offense. I love that they, even at the end of the first half, were still kind of taking shots and being aggressive. Again, it's hard to say, like, I'm not going to sit here and say like Dak was like overwhelmingly awesome, but I think he was fine. I think he did what was necessary, did what was asked of him. I would put it way beyond anything like game management or bus driving or whatever, but it just wasn't a game that required much on offense.
File it under something to watch. I don't think he looked bad, but I did see him, and I wasn't watching the full game closely because the Eagles had just played and I was doing recap stuff. I did see him miss a couple throws, and I did look at the box score, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't really too good. But again, the context of, it's not like he needed to do a lot, so it's not necessarily like they're going all out in this game.
I'm very interested to see the next few weeks for the Cowboys. We obviously talked about it, but they do host the New York Jets on Sunday afternoon. And so it's that
it's a nice
line
path to 2-0.
And next week they visit the Arizona Cardinals before they host the Patriots. A game that at least seems more interesting than it did this time a week ago. But just for information's sake, the Cowboys initially opened as 3-point favorites against the Jets, according to our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. That was taken off the board, obviously, in the Aaron Rodgers moments. It wasn't until about midnight on Monday night that they finally put it back up. Currently, Dallas is favored by 7.5, so 4.5 points that moved in the aftermath of that. It's the home opener for Dallas. Obviously, you get to 2-0. It's better than 1-1. So that's just kind of where we're at here.
I hit on my lock of the week.
You did.
The Cowboys. I mean, wait, it wasn't bold enough. I should have taken them minus 35. Yeah, it was. I thought that was just very clear.
Well, thank you, Bear. We will get to the Giants in a little bit. We are going in divisional order. Bear, it's fine. The Eagles did win, but over an AFC team. So they're in 3rd place in a technical sense after the small sample size that is week 1. The Washington Commanders, Brandon, beat a former NFC East team, not the Phoenix Cardinals, but the Arizona Cardinals, 20-16, the final score. It felt like early on that Washington was going to kind of cruise in what we sort of professed. I think it's prophesied, whatever, that what we foresaw was going to happen. They were going to blow them out, and we were going to get this like onslaught of Washington love. Got a little bit sticky at the very end. Kudos to Josh Dobbs and the Cardinals. Maybe they are going to be a little bit more plucky than we envisioned. Maybe they're not quite tanking, but nevertheless, the Commanders have a winning percentage of 1,000, 100%, whatever you want to call it, in the Josh Harris ownership era.
Yeah, I can say it's impressive when you need 10 points in the fourth quarter to win by 4 against the Jonathan Gannon, Josh Dobbs led Cardinals. Josh Dobbs with 4.4 yards per attempt, 78.8 pass rating, 132 passing yards. I mean, not the most impressive performance. Cardinals stink. They're really bad. They're trying to be bad, it seems like, to some extent. And Washington struggled to beat them at home in their most juiced up game they've had in some time. Sam Howell certainly did not do anything to make me look good in terms of thinking he can be something.
The touchdown that he threw to Brian Robinson was awesome. To be clear, I mean, I hate to support you, but like there were moments where you were like, "Hey, this dude's kind of a scrappy little quarterback." You know what I mean? Like that's at least how I felt. And then it got really bad. I mean, but like there is legit quarterback play in him. I do believe that. I don't know that it can exist for an entire game though.
Well, Curtis Samuel led the team in receiving, so he's the next Christian McCaffrey. That's good news.
He's the next Curtis Samuel from the Carolina days, obviously.
True. Running game didn't get going there. They, as a whole, 28 for 92, 3.3 average. Brian Robinson was like the bell cow back, but only had 19 for 59. Not impressive. Just not really an impressive win. They won, so that's nice for them in their new era and everything. But I really think that when you're at home and you're trying to turn a page and everything, improve, okay, maybe we're the team that, or we can be better than people think we can. I think you need more style points in this kind of game against, again, a team that people are thinking is going to be the worst team in the NFL.
So Bear, it's fine. While I'm inclined, Bear's really bummed, by the way. Like my Justin Fields belief has taken a big hit. I'm actually kind of glad that you're not going to be on Friday's show because I wouldn't want to have to talk about it with you.
Don't worry, it's a long season. I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about it every week.
But
I just think offense, I'm interrupting you, but like there's nothing needle moving about this, I guess.
And I'm not here to be like, oh, watch out for Washington, but and by the way, I mean, well, like offense was down in the NFL, right? Like even the Cowboys who scored 40 points, like it wasn't this big like offensive explosion. So like I think, we should extend some like week 1 extended preseason grace to everyone. That includes Washington. So like I get your point and I agree with you that like you would
I'm not
love
trying
to
to hammer them. I'm just saying
right. But like you would love to see like a domination. I'm going to dial it back. I would have liked to have seen just moderate cruise control, because it wasn't that. It was stressful at one point in time, and it shouldn't have been. You didn't even cover. You know what I mean? Like that. Well, because what was the line? 7?
Yeah, they were 7 or 7.5 point favorites at home.
Right. So, I mean, it's the adage that is said all the time: good teams win, great teams cover. So, okay, You won. Like, I don't even know that you're a good team right now, but you won. Kudos. I'm sure the vibes are really nice, but I don't know that I think they're even going to lose this week. We'll get to that game, obviously, in a little bit, but whatever. I mean, they exist. I have one kind of final question for you on this. How did you feel about Joel Embiid being there?
I mean,
because that's your guy. Like that's
what I mean. But this is why it matters, because it's like, okay, the star player that I love and root for is now appearing at the rival team's thing and was part of like a promotional, the tweet that Ian Rappaport had saying like celebrities attending week 1 game include Joel Embiid and whoever else, like obviously Magic is part of the ownership and whoever else was there. Yeah, I don't love to see it. I'm not outraged, in part because I just don't care about the Sixers at all right now, and I don't want to think about the Sixers at all. But I can't say it's cool or fun or a good time.
Well, by the way, I just saw a tweet. My Bears belief and my Vikings belief. We'll get to the Vikings obviously in a little bit. We preview Thursday Night Football. Really down. I might be ready to jump ship on the Vikings. We'll talk about that. But
wow.
I saw a great tweet. Now is the time for the Jets to trade for Kirk Cousins. I kind of love that. Right, because we kind of think the Vikings are moving on. Like that is a great. That's my favorite Jets idea that I've heard so far.
They should.
And plus, I really want that to happen because there's no way he would play this week. So that means I get the benefit of the Cowboys not having to play him and then getting to see Kirk thrive, which I definitely would love to see. But okay, let's move on. The Philadelphia Eagles.
We're not going to take a break. We're halfway through.
Fine. Take a break, even though we already put the graphic up on the screen. We will be right back after one very important singular word from our sponsors. Brandon, welcome back. While we were gone, I told you what I made over the weekend, and it was delicious. Do you want me to tell the listeners as well?
I saw a picture of this. I don't remember exactly what it was.
I smoked a pulled pork or pork butt on Saturday. So I did this, and I was so happy on Sunday that I did it on Saturday, even though the Cowboys played on Sunday night, because while, a pellet grill removes a lot of the work, like you don't have to nurse the fire, I still had to do, a few things that I wouldn't have wanted to have done, while the red zone action was happening all day on Sunday. 10 and a half hours it was in there, and holy crap. It slapped. It was amazing.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Wish I got to try it.
Me too. Anyway, the Philadelphia Eagles had a 16-0 lead on the road in Foxborough. Tom Brady was celebrated and was fast-tracked into the New England Patriots Hall of Fame. Imagine asking Jerry Jones to do that with Jimmy Johnson. But anyway, that became, talk about stressful, sticky, tenuous, all of those things. Jalen Hurts had a fumble at the very end of this game that opened the door for the Patriots to kind of climb their way back in, and they damn near didn't. If not for who had the 1 foot out of bounds at the very end? Was it for New England? Was it?
His last name is Boutee. Boutee.
Yeah, I will always remember this as the Kendrick Bourne game for New England because Stats believed in him.
Stats loves Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, I never thought that would translate. We had some prop bet on him last year, but anyway, Kendrick Bourne had 2 touchdowns, I believe, in this game for New England. And it really kind of felt like the Patriots were going to do it, but credit to the Eagles. They dug in and held on for a bumpy ride to get to 1-0.
Again, this kind of the bigger picture take here is like, it's not 2022 anymore. It's not as simple as we always say in the show. You always bring up the example of the Des didn't catch it moment. You don't just get to pick up from where you left off last year. It's a whole new year. And the Eagles are a team that has 2 new coordinators, and they lost some key players, and you saw some of the effects of those things in this game. I mean, to me, one of the most frustrating things leaving this is you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert, you have a good offensive line, maybe one of the better ones in the NFL, maybe the best in the NFL. You have Jalen Hurts. You have all of this, and you score 1 offensive touchdown. Like, that's just not good enough. I know it was bad weather. I know it's Bill Belichick, and I do think the Patriots came up with a really good defensive game plan. It wasn't just like the Eagles weren't executing. I think the Patriots coached well. And look, Brian Johnson is in his first game as an NFL offensive coordinator calling plays, going up against Bill Belichick. Is it like crazy that he got outcoached by that guy? No, not at all. That's not the end of the world. But it's frustrating to see. And some of the usage too. I mean, Dallas Goedert got 1 target the whole game. Didn't have a reception. What are we doing there? The combination, RJ, of Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and who am I missing? DeAndre Swift, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. The 4 of them combined for fewer touches than Kenny Gainwell had. Kenny Gainwell, the Eagles' leading running back, with 18. Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing that? Like,
the Kenny Gainwell thing was really interesting. And I know all the jokes and stuff that have been said about him in the past, but I know you don't play fantasy football, but this was like a big, like, buzzing thing on Sunday. Everybody was like, go pick up Kenny Gainwell right now before it's too late. It's going to be too late. And the volume, the usage certainly would prove that to be true, like in a fantasy football sense. I mean, Rashad Penny, healthy scratch, right? I mean, is there an injury going on there that, like,
no injury, just a healthy scratch?
Healthy scratch, which, if you still were looking for an explanation, further explains the DeAndre Swift trade. DeAndre Swift, in his debut, carried the ball 1 time, again, which speaks to the infatuation with Kenny Gainwell. But yeah, I mean, like, look, I know, like, we've joked about it and things like that, but, like, objectively, like, regression of the mean is a thing. Like, and to the mean doesn't even mean, like, to the actual mean. It just means, like,
and everyone always gets you on this.
But, like,
I think you use it wrong.
What do you mean? How am I using it wrong?
There's regression that isn't to the mean. You can regress.
No, that's what I'm saying. But you're regressing towards the mean. But, like, the Eagles, I would offer, I've said this many times, that, like, that last year was maybe the best season in Philadelphia Eagles
I
franchise
said
history.
that. That's why the Super Bowl was so devastating, because it's like,
Right.
this is the zenith, and you didn't accomplish it.
So, like, if you were in the actual literal 100th percentile, regression to the mean could literally mean you're in the 99th percentile. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't know that this is that, but like, it always made sense that like things were going to be a little bit awkward and difficult. And even then, like, I think you can explain it away a little bit. I thought JP Acosta put it well on Monday Football Monday. If you give Bill Belichick what was it, 6 months or not even, well, I don't know, like 5 months, whatever, to prepare for you, like it's not going to go well. So I don't know that it's warranted to be like panicking if you're an Eagles fan, but it is fair, I think, to have the approach that you do, which is like, last season was a one of one kind of thing. They could still be a very good team, but it will not be the like weekly, as you mentioned it, like ass kicking that you handed out. It's going to be a lot more like, gritty and tough in different instances. And if you can win those games, like, kudos, like that is the mark of a good team ultimately. But you mentioned the one offensive touchdown. That's where, like, early on to me, it felt like, man, this is a tough kind of go for the Eagles, because there was the Darius Slay pick six, which was a tip ball. And then the one touchdown came off
The
the
return was
aforementioned.
nice, though. Yeah, the pick was a
Sure.
gift,
Well,
but his actual return, like, that was deserved.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, you give any, amazing athlete like an opportunity, like they're probably going to make something special happen, which is what he did. Although Mac Jones clearly made a business decision, which I don't blame him for. But then the lone offensive touchdown was off the Zeke fumble, which set up nicely from a field position standpoint. Like, that would be, I think the thing I want to watch the most on Thursday night is like, can the offense get clicking? Because it was kind of like pulling teeth in New England.
Yeah, the offensive line was uncharacteristically not good. PFF had like Lane Johnson down with 6 pressures. Jordan Mailata had 4 pressures allowed, and he had 2 penalties as well, including like this holding penalty where he just didn't even need to do it at all because Jalen Hurts was way away from him already, running free. So that's definitely something where the offensive line gets the benefit of the doubt because they've been so good for so long. But we will continue to monitor that. Another thing, going back to the big picture of it all, is like, when expectations are so high, which they naturally are coming off the Super Bowl, there's really only room to like underachieve. Because when you win, you did what you expected, and then if you lose, or not even if you lose, the Eagles won and the Eagles covered, and we're sitting here saying like, well, it's not time to panic. Well, yeah, it shouldn't be. They won the game, but I get why at the same time it didn't feel good, and why people would be saying that, including myself. I think you have to contextualize it too in terms of week 1 can be weird.
Sure.
You had just mentioned
The offense was down all the way around as well.
The Cowboys get not blown out is a weird word, but they not competitive ultimately in a game that is decided by 16 points, 19-3 last year against the Bucks. It's a long season. At the end of the season, the Cowboys blow out that team in the wild card playoff game in Tampa Bay. Obviously, the Bengals started 0-2 last year and end up taking the Chiefs, the eventual Super Bowl champs, down to the wire in the AFC Championship game. Plenty of different examples. The Bears beat the 49ers last year in week 1 by 9 points. A lot of Carson Wentz, who I just mentioned earlier, had 4 touchdown passes in a week 1 victory over Doug Peterson's Jaguars, who won a playoff game last year. So certainly a lot of things can happen in week 1 that don't really portend to what ultimately is going to happen. But that being said, this is a game that the Eagles need to flush in a way. And if they go out on Thursday night and they beat up on the Vikings, then I think everyone kind of forgets about week 1 for the most part. But there's definitely real concerns to emerge from this game. I'm not going to deny that. But there's also, I think, a lot of reason to still give this team the benefit of the doubt.
There isn't the same kind of like, catchphrase that you can say about this same disposition, but like we mentioned it a little while ago, right? Like, the good teams win, great teams cover. Like, everybody's heard that. I also think that great teams, and we'll see if if any of these teams wind up being great. So obviously, but we're talking about the Eagles, but like, I think there is a great team quality to like winning games you're not supposed to. You know what I mean? And like, they did cover, to your point. What was it? It was 4.5, right? So it's like, they literally barely covered, but still covered.
No, I think it was actually 3.5.
Oh, you're right. Okay, well, still, then covered comfortably. But the 2-point conversion, oh man, that was it if you had that line. But anyway, but there is something to like winning. I wouldn't say this was a game that the Eagles weren't supposed to win, but like, landing the plane in turbulence is not easy. And especially, I know it's vogue to like hate on the Patriots now and hate on Bill Belichick, and it was all Tom Brady. Like, this was, I'm more interested in the Patriots now. Like I said, that week 4 Cowboys game, I'm not I'm not approaching that as relaxed as I was maybe again at this time a week ago. It was either the Eagles defense is going to be awful because they allowed Mac Jones to kind of like own them, or Mac Jones is taking a bit of a step here.
I came up with a line of thinking that I think I'm proud of and makes sense. Let me know if you like this or not. I think a head coach sets your floor and the quarterback helps you reach your ceiling. I think that's how the dynamic works here. I think that's what we've seen to bear out. Like the Patriots clearly have a high floor with Bill Belichick, but with Mac Jones, you're not going to have that same kind of ceiling, obviously, as the best player of all time in Tom
I
Brady.
like this.
So, yeah, I think that's what we're looking at here. And I think Patriots are going to be a solid team. Their defense certainly is good, but ultimately, Bill Belichick is still, again, very much mortal because they're not like Mac Jones isn't going to turn into Brady or anything like that. So,
still though, Mac Jones in this game threw the ball 54 times. Although, I mean, if you're trailing 16-0, like that's.
He wasn't great. He was fine.
35 of 54, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the one pick that was a tipped ball. I mean, I wouldn't put that on him as much as I would put like Josh
It was a
Allen's
high. It was a high throw. He deserved to be picked off. Like, it was a high throw.
Maybe like 98% deserved as opposed.
It wasn't it wasn't like the Mahomes interception, like where it's in Kadarius Toney's hands and it bounces off. Like,
that's right.
Exactly. It was thrown way too high. Also, I mean, 316 yards sounds like a lot, but it's not when you throw 54 times, like you said. It's 5.9. It's a 5.9 average. That's not good. He was fine. He wasn't great. He was fine. What he did do well is attack a concerning soft middle of the Eagles defense, where the Eagles linebackers, certainly with Nakobe Dean getting hurt as well, and Justin Evans starting for them, who was kind of like, who's that, is not good, and it's certainly something that teams will be looking to do moving forward. That's definitely something he did do.
Let's move on to the Giants. I know we already kind of talked about them. We didn't say this then, but I wrote an article at our site doing my best to contextualize how historical of a beatdown this was, which obviously is one half Giants. I don't know if you saw these or if you heard these. Did you see the Bill Barnwell EPA tweet?
I think I did, but I forget it.
So the Giants on Sunday night had a negative 23.8 offensive EPA. The Kendall Hinton Broncos in the COVID game that he had to play quarterback had a negative 23.7. So the Giants were literally worse than that. What's more, the Giants OptaStats had this. I don't know if you saw it. So they accomplished all 5 of these things in a single game. They lost the game 40-0 or worse. They lost the sack battle 7-0 or worse. They lost the turnover battle 3-0 or worse. They had a field goal blocked and returned for a touchdown, and they also threw a pick 6. Although that was a tip, you know what I mean? I wouldn't put that on Daniel Jones. That was in Saquon's hands technically. But either way, no other team in NFL history has had all 5 of these happen to them in the same season. They all happened to the Giants in one single game. It was also not only the biggest shutout victory for the Cowboys in a season opener, it was the biggest shutout loss for the New York Giants in a season opener after they spent the season announcing, we're back, we're for real, everyone stop it, start taking us seriously. And you and I have extended some grace to them, but like, man, this was, like the benefit of the doubt has been burned. Like, we'll give it, but like, you have no more left in the bank.
I mean, they didn't deserve any when it came to the Cowboys matchup specifically, as we talked about. Just not ever been.
Not against the Dak Cowboys. I mean, they were 0-10, and they were like, "Oh, we prefer Daniel Jones to Dak Prescott." Okay.
I mean, it's a tough look for the Giants. Not only losing this bad, but also everything going around it in terms of they're like handing out extensions to a lot of these players. This is your core. You're not a team on the rise. You're not like an ascending team or coming off a different regime, and you have like all this unlimited potential. This is your team. Largely, this is who it is. Like, you added Darren Waller to be, more of a complete team.
Who, by the way, almost didn't play in this game. I don't know. We did talk about
Shocker, with another injury.
Well, that popped up on Friday. That popped up kind of in the 11th hour that he was, I think the official designation was questionable. But he did wind up playing in the game for what it's worth.
And making a huge difference, clearly. So, yeah, I mean, Giants are, I think, in that kind of, it could be that 2017 version of them a little bit where, 2016, they had the Ben McAdoo season, and that was surprisingly good. It didn't feel real at the time entirely. Remember, the defense is really good. The offense was not good. And I remember they also had a really easy schedule and they were beating teams close. If you go back to like the second half of last year, I mean, like, what have the Giants done? You know, obviously they beat the Vikings, okay, a team that like no one respected in the playoffs. Okay, but okay, great. You did that. You have that one playoff win, and then proceeded to get blown out 38-7 the next week. So, okay, you weren't like going to make a run, and no signs of actually making a real run. Okay, but you had that. But they finished the season kind of weak. Like after they started 7-2 last year.
They were 7-3, and then we were talking about because they started to slip away, and we were like, oh, they're going to fall apart. And then we gave them credit because they put their foot in the ground. They staved it off. They had the tie against Washington when it looked like Washington could leapfrog them, and they held on obviously and wound up making the playoffs.
But they've not been like as impressive for a while now. Like you have to go back to early last year when they were playing at their best. It's been a while now since they've been like super impressive. I have the Giants dead last in my power rankings at Bleeding Green Nation. I mean, how could you not? I mean, it's such a pathetic loss. So you kind of touched on this briefly, but like, where's the fight at all? Like, it's so hard to get shut out in the NFL. It's very hard. And
well, go ahead.
No, you finish.
Well, you mentioned when we talked about the Cowboys that you knew it was over after the blocked field goal, and that was actually the missed extra point. It was 6-0, and like I get your point, but it obviously wasn't. But to me, it looked like the Giants quit after the pick six. Like when NBC showed Saquon kind of just sitting there, like he looked stunned. He looked like overwhelmed, and I don't mean to do the like the sports blogger sitting at home like, oh, look at his face, like he's completely quit, but like. They looked completely like okay, like we don't belong here with these dudes, and that was really early. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that there was still they did not play. I hate to again say this like whatever, but they had quit. Like they quit for over an entire half. Like they were done with this game before halftime. It was very, very clear. And like to me, and I don't think Brian Daboll is a bad coach. I did think it was ridiculous that Kevin O'Connell didn't get any discussion for Coach of the Year last year. I understand that the Vikings would go on to lose to the Giants, whatever. But like you're going to be the Coach of the Year. Like your dudes cannot quit like this, especially when you're talking about like you've rebuilt this program and blah, blah, blah. And what's more, we haven't even talked about this. Why are you leaving Daniel Jones out there to get demolished? I mean, that was such a even. I mean, like, look, we can sit here and say what we want about Daniel Jones. We actually have been very kind towards him and offered promising, prospects for him. But I mean, like, even if you don't like him, like you just gave him a brand new contract. Like, what are you doing that is accomplishing nothing? It was a really stupid decision and a really ridiculous one by Brian Daboll.
4 wins. That's the amount of wins they have in their last 13 games. Like, this is not a team that's trending in the right direction. So
you're right.
That's
they were 7-2. And then they finished 9-7-1. So they went 2-5-1, and then beat the Vikings in the wild card round.
So I just think it's a team that's not necessarily. Everyone thought they were trending in the right direction because when you look at all the seasons prior and recent history to last year, it looks like they're going in the right way. But they did not finish the season on the at least for that second half as a whole, and looping the playoffs into that, like on really this trajectory that definitely said they're pointing in the right direction. And entering the year, we talked about like one of the concerns with them is the offensive line, still an issue, and it is still an issue, and it's a huge issue, and you're not getting around that. And like it's not just the only reason why Daniel Jones isn't looking great, but it's certainly a factor. And I just don't know really. Now, in fairness, we just talked about the week 1 stuff. Maybe it's just a really bad week 1. Maybe they can rebound here. I don't know, though, man. We should probably get to the picks now because then we're getting to their outlook. I mean, they get the Cardinals, so maybe they get on the right track.
We got to go in order. Let's close the book on the Giants in terms of their week 1 performance. So again, we have to go. Now we're not in divisional order. Now we're in chronological order. The rules around here are very, very strict. The Philadelphia Eagles play first this week. They're on Thursday Night Football. Right. We talked about the quick turnaround. Our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook currently have the Eagles as 7-point favorites. If you allow me, I talked about how I'm kind of ready to jump ship on the Vikings. I do believe in Kirk as a quarterback that can, I don't say win the Super Bowl, but like with the right circumstances, the right talent, whatever, like it's possible. We've seen that version of things. But man, that was a tough loss. And I'm also willing to say the week 1 offense stuff, whatever, maybe the Vikings bounce back. But it was this week, correct me if I'm wrong, a year ago when Philadelphia hosted them on Monday Night Football.
Mhm.
And I had just picked the Vikings win the Super Bowl. And so I had some tweets that didn't age well. All the Eagles fans came for me. I was, whatever. It was an embarrassing night. That was kind of like the beginning of the Eagles, like true, like kind of flexing on everyone, right? And I even said then, or shortly after, like, I think we're getting a Philly Minnesota NFC Championship game, and I joked that Jalen Reagor was going to make the winning, touchdown catch, whatever. I did not anticipate that I've been like building the case to pick the Vikings against the Eagles forever. I can't do it. I can't. Like, I just cannot do it. Like, I think Justin Jefferson is insane. I think Jordan Addison offers a lot of potential. I think Kirk Cousins can get it done, but I'm no longer willing to believe in this team. They have to re-earn some benefit of the doubt in my book. So I'm taking the Eagles to win and to cover.
Hard not to take the Eagles to win in terms of, I mean, Kirk Cousins, the primetime thing has been a thing. It's not a thing at all.
And it's on Prime, like literally on Prime.
There you go. An added factor. Yeah, I mean, it's a little weird to me because, he had the turnovers. I don't know that he's going to necessarily turn the ball over 3 times again, definitely. But still, I mean, that Bucks team is not good. I'm not buying that Bucks team as being great. And the Vikings were 5-point home favorites. And you lost.
They were my
3.
lock. They were my lock of the week.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's tough. I mean, they should have won. Like, that was a reasonable expectation, and instead they put up 17 freaking points on the Bucks. It's a big spread, so I don't really feel I would stay away. I wouldn't touch it.
That's fair.
I don't like touching that at all because I don't want to put faith in Cousins, and I also just think it's a big number. I do think the Eagles will win the game. I'm worried about the Vikings attacking the middle of the Eagles defense, which I just talked about as a concern. Justin Jefferson also.
Dean, what's the situation there?
Yeah,
there's a lot of injuries going on.
A lot of them. We talked about Kenny Gainwell earlier. He might not even play. Derek Gunn, who's a really good reporter in Philadelphia, had mentioned that he has a ribs issue and it's kind of not looking sure. He's not sure. It's kind of up in the air. Kenny Gainwell's kind of up in the air as we're recording this on Tuesday. Fletcher Cox is expected to play through his ribs injury. James Bradbury is likely going to be out because he has a concussion, and it's really hard to pass the concussion protocol from a Sunday afternoon to a Thursday game. So it looks like the Eagles will be starting Josh Jobe across from Darius Slay. That's certainly an issue. I think Jobe had a good summer, but James Bradbury is a more established player. And then with Nakobe Dean, sounds like he's going to be out multiple weeks, could potentially go on IR. The Eagles only have 2 other 4-3 off-ball linebackers on the roster. That is Zach Cunningham, who they signed in training camp, and that is Christian Ellis, was actually originally, I think, signed with the Vikings as a UDFA or was a draft pick by them once upon a time. So a little revenge game angle for him. But those are the only 2 ones on the roster. They can bring up Nicholas Morrow, who was like the starter in day 1 of training camp and then fell out of favor and got cut and was re-signed to the practice squad. So, yeah, they're dealing with some injury issues. That's not ideal. I think there was another one on there too that I'm missing. I said Dean, Bradbury, Cox, Gainwell, and I think there was one more too. But point being, that is the one thing I don't like. And so I said earlier, I think it's a nice opportunity for the Eagles to play so quickly for the sake that they can kind of just put the week 1 behind them and turn the page to week 2 and feel better about themselves that they can win this game. But the bad news is they have these injuries here, and that is going to be an issue. Reed Blankenship also as well was on the injury report, but I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, to be clear, I agree with you in terms of picking them to cover. My picking Philadelphia to cover is more about like I'm just kind of sick of the Vikings now. You know what I mean? Like I've stood up for you so long, and for so many different things. Like I really am pissed. So I'm just at this point where I'm actually going to the opposite end of the spectrum. I think this game goes 2 ways, one of 2 ways potentially for Philadelphia. Obviously, the loss is a loss is like the worst possible thing. But it's either like a blowout win, and it's like, okay, stabilize the ship, and then it's like chill, not just for 10 days, but for 11 days because they play on Monday Night Football the following week against the Buccaneers. Or it's another like topsy-turvy kind of rocky ride. And even if you get the win, I do think that's our buddy Pete Sweeney tweeted after the Chiefs lost last Thursday. He was like, it's going to be a really long 10 days in Kansas City, which it's like, why don't you guys chill out? Like, y'all are going to be fine. Like, there's no need for y'all to fret. But whatever. But I think Pete was right. And, but my point is like, sometimes we see that, right? Where like a team goes through like a long 10 days because they wait after Thursday Night Football. Sometimes that can happen even after an ugly win. But if you have to sit on a loss for that long, it's also really tough. But if you go through that long stretch and then lose after, like if the Chiefs go through the proverbial long 10 days and then lose to the Jaguars this week, like the toxicity after that is like a different kind of animal. And so, yeah, I think that people are going to feel like the Eagles have to go make a statement. They have to go like, take off on, no. Like they just got to get the win. You got to win. You're 2-0. You get almost 2 weeks, rounding up here to rest and prepare and kind of calm things down. You'll be fine.
I would say they need to score more than one offensive touchdown. It's not that they need to blow them out, but they do need to the offense has to look competent at least. That does have to happen.
I also, if I'm going to throw out a need, I don't think Jalen Hurts is a turnover-prone quarterback. But the fumble last week was very like, what? Like, and it was first play right after the second Kendrick Bourne touchdown. So it was this like kind of like, what? Like it almost felt
was
like
dumb. Like, yeah, it was dumb. It wasn't even like it was just a dumb like situational thing. Why would you? First of all, give credit to Jabril Peppers, a great hit. But yeah, why is Jalen Hurts putting himself? And especially because in the game as a whole, he was doing a really good job of not taking hits and sliding. So why was that the time on first down after you're trying to bleed the clock to get aggressive? Like it was a baffling decision by him.
Exactly. And so if there's something like that, I don't think anyone's going to come for Jalen Hurts, but then the questions start, right? Like then the like discussions are different. So again, I don't think Jalen Hurts has anything to prove, but like go out, play a clean game. Nobody needs to play, like, don't be Josh Allen trying to play hero ball. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no need for that. Just get a win, get a dub, get through, and have a long week and a half to kind of chill and put it on ice. But okay, the rest of week 2 in the NFC East, we talked about it. The Cowboys will host the Jets. Both the Commanders and Giants are on the road, Brandon. Washington visiting Denver, New York visiting the Arizona Cardinals. I believe that the Giants are staying on the West Coast after that because they visit the 49ers next week. So life could get very tough for them quickly. Just to be clear, we're both picking the Eagles to win. I am picking them to cover. You're not. I think that was your inference.
I didn't say that. I said I would stay away from the line. If I have to pick, I'll take them to cover, but I wouldn't actually put money on that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Want to bet that.
Understood. The Cowboys line has grown since we started this recording. They are now 9.5-point favorites against the New York Jets. Your pick, straight up, and
we should do the Giants. You said chronological order. I mean, the Giants Cardinals game begins at 4:05.
I was reading. That's my bad. So the Cowboys are in the afternoon window, as are the Commanders. So you're right. First up, the Giants
Cardinals.
They're all in the afternoon window.
Nope.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, but
20 minutes earlier. That's so
you said chronological order.
Great. No, my bad. You're right. I misread that. So the Giants currently are 5-point favorites on the road against the Cardinals. I will take them to win, but not to cover.
Yeah, I'll take the points here. That's the same thing. They'll win the game, but you can't get. They've not earned the benefit of the doubt. Cardinals haven't done that much either, but it's home. And it's a home dog as 5.5-point favorites is pretty tempting. And especially in a matchup where I think both of the teams are not good. Yeah, I will lean with the points, but I will say the Giants do win.
If they lose this game, kind of the 10 days have to sit on it. Like that is a rough way to fall to 0-2, right? Like you get blasted. You get blasted by the big brother that you said you were on the same page as, in like a more humbling way than ever. Then you lose to potentially, admittedly, openly tanking team against the defensive coordinator from last year that obviously took a lot of heat. And then you have to stay out there and not only stay out there, but then go visit the 49ers of all teams.
Yeah, it's not good.
And we've talked about this. Like they, 4 of their first 6 on the road, 5 of their first 6 against playoff teams from last year. It's a hard beginning of the season for the Giants, but if they're not ready for it, obviously it's going to get away from them.
It's a must-win game this week. I think you have to. You can't go into the 49ers game 0-2. You can't.
We might as well do Washington first, even though, actually, DraftKings has Dallas listed next. The Jets 9.5-point dogs on the road in the home opener for the Cowboys on Sunday afternoon.
You see 9.5? I'm looking at 8.5 here.
No, 9.5. Unless I haven't refreshed it in the last 20 minutes.
I'm gonna refresh too. Maybe I didn't refresh.
9.5.
Okay, interesting.
I said, it was 7.5 when we started this conversation 53 minutes ago.
I guess I didn't refresh. Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at it. Yeah, it was 8.5. I didn't refresh. Now it is. Actually, I think I opened the lines when we started looking at the predictions here. So that was very quickly that changed.
It's been 9.5 for 30 minutes, to be clear. I've been waiting to tell you this for a while. So,
well, not for me. Anyway. I mean, the Cowboys are going to win the game. That's not in question. 9.5 is a lot. Again, I think the Jets can be respectable, but I think you have to. I mean, I would regret putting faith in Zach Wilson specifically, who is prone to turning the ball over in dumb ways too. That's going to be an issue. That can create points for the Cowboys. I will take the Cowboys to cover. It is a big line.
See, my I'm taking the Cowboys to cover is a little bit more about the Jets than it is the Cowboys. I worry that some Cowboys fans saw the 40-0 and now they're going to be like, oh, we're just going to do that every week. Like, no. It will be difficult and it might be, tight and sticky and tenuous and everything because that's life in the NFL. But I'm not prepared to give the Zach Wilson Jets anything yet. I need to see something, you know what I mean, before I'm willing to even say, hey, I'll give you 9.5 or I'll take 9.5 points. Like, that's a lot, but like, it's a very unique situation. Okay. So we're in complete and total universal agreement so far. The Washington Commanders, as mentioned, are visiting the Denver Broncos. They are the lone underdogs in the division this week, Brandon. They are 3.5-point dogs. It's not called Mile High Stadium anymore, right? It's called something.
I don't know.
Got some sponsor. But either way, they're visiting the 0-1 Broncos.
What would Russell Wilson have to say about this game, RJ?
We haven't done it in a long time. I know we lost last week, but we showed a lot of heart. And I don't know if you guys saw the beginning of the game, but Coach Payton, yeah, he's been very, very specific that I call him that because I call him Nathaniel Hackett, Nathaniel, and that's apparently not part of the rules that we have going on here. But Coach Payton, he went with that onside kick, and man, it was so cool. And I know it didn't count, but it reminded me, I know y'all remember Super Bowl 44, excuse me, when the New Orleans Saints did that against Indianapolis Colts. And Sean Payton, they won the Super Bowl. I was such a big fan of them. And then, of course, I won the Super Bowl. So we got Super Bowls in the house, and that's what we're trying to get. We're trying to achieve, and we're trying to strive for. And it all starts with the first win of the year. And that's, we got the Commanders. They really, they played well. They played hard. They beat the Cardinals. I know them well from my time in the NFC West, but it's going to be a battle, and we're going to have to fight. And but I'm confident that we have that fight in us. And those fans at Mile High or whatever we're calling it stadium, they're going to be loud and they're going to roar, and they're the best fans in the world. Broncos Nation, Broncos Country, Broncos Universe, Broncos Galaxy, all of it, man. Let's go. It felt weird doing it after a while. Like
this is tough, man, because I just talked about how I wasn't impressed with the Commanders, but Broncos it's just such bad vibes. They've been such bad vibes with Russ there. They lost to the freaking Raiders.
It looked like just the same last week. Like, what I mean?
That's what I mean.
Nothing looked better or different. And
so I know why am I banking on that again? How could I possibly put faith in them?
I know I made fun of the onside kick thing, and let me be very clear. I thought it was cool. But like, if I'm being like fair and having to like evaluate it, it was super lame. Like it. And I think it was Greg Rosenthal who made the point on the Around the NFL podcast. Like it was such a like, remember how big of a badass I am move from Sean Payton. Like the Broncos are the most like smoke and mirrors team ever in this era. Like they're just trying to convince us that they're good, and I'm not willing to buy in. I'll take the Commanders to win. I don't feel great about it, but like I can talk myself more into that. So I'm obviously taking the points.
Just to be different, I'll say the Broncos win, but I will take the points as well.
Okay, so then we are on the same page with 7 of 8 things.
We're on page of the straight up picks, and then we differ, on just the spread in the final game.
You just said exactly what I did. You just changed the words.
Right.
Wow. So, okay, then we will see what the week has in store. It's going to be a lot of fun. What do you want to say, Brandon, as we leave?
Well, we have to get to the songs that you're forgetting about.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Man, that's my bad. So Rachel was wonderful as always and got her song in before really anything. And I'm pulling it up here because I think it was Moves Like Jagger by Maroon 5. Obviously an amazing song, an incredible song. Rachel doesn't miss. I tell her that in the chat, but Rachel always hits strong.
It's a pretty catchy one. I feel like it was big in like 2011, 10, somewhere around there.
I used to say to people, I would walk around in college and I would be like, I got kicked to the curb because I look like Mick Jagger. Like I thought that was a really clever thing to say. You know what I mean? I also used to text people at 1:15 in the morning. This was when the song Need You Now was like really popular. And I would text like everyone in my phone. I'd be like, it's 1:15. Like, like I was just, it was, again, I'm not proud of like the things I thought were cool or funny or clever.
I mean,
but
you're bringing them up, so you are.
Thankfully, my friend group allowed me to do them and not call me names. So
I'm gonna go with "Don't Worry, Be Happy" by Bobby McFerrin because I think that fits the theme of where I'm at with the Eagles. I'm not really worried. I do think there are legitimate concerns, but I think ultimately in the big, I said to Jimmy on BGN radio, if I had to put my concern level from somewhere of 1 to 10, 10 being the sky is falling, I probably was at a 1 entering week 1, and now I'm at like a 2.5 at most entering week 2. And part of that's just because of the injury stuff. It's not even because of like how they looked. So I think they'll be okay. Don't worry, be happy.
Good song. Good choice. Okay. I'm gonna go with the song. Can you name a Carly Rae Jepsen song?
The Call Me Maybe, right?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one everyone can name. I'm not gonna go with that one. I'm gonna go with the song "I Really Like You" by Carly Rae Jepsen. She has some sneaky big time hits. And if you watch the music video for this one, Tom Hanks is in it, and he's doing this kind of like dance. It's really cool. That's where I'm at. What's your favorite Tom Hanks movie?
Forrest Gump.
It's hard to argue with. I actually was having a conversation with my wife.
I do like Terminal a lot too. Where he was that's what it's called, right? The one where you're stuck in the air terminal.
Yeah, I think it's fun. The Terminal, just to be clear. Okay. But Toy Story is up there. Castaway's great.
It's a little slow, which I mean, it's a compelling movie.
I agree with that. I mean,
I'll stick with Forrest Gump.
Some people would say
come
Big.
On, it's great.
Big's a classic. Yeah. It was Tom Hanks in Philadelphia, right? I mean, it's a deep story, but obviously Philadelphia.
I'll go Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump's pretty good.
Wow. But anyway, I was asking my wife this. We were talking about different things, and the subject of Michael Keaton came up. What would you say is the like role Michael Keaton is most known for? Like if I asked you Tom Hanks, you would maybe be like, Castaway or Toy Story or Forrest Gump, maybe. But like, what is Michael Keaton most known for?
Batman.
Okay, so I think that's the right answer, but he's not even the best Batman. So like that would suck to like, be known for Batman? That Christian Bale.
No, Val Kilmer.
Wow.
I mean, I love that movie. That's what that. Which one is that? I forget. It's silly. It's like ridiculous, but I like it.
I always forget. So Batman and Robin is George Clooney. Val Kilmer's.
It's not Clooney. Clooney is definitely not like. I know you're not saying that. I'm saying like anyone who says that, no.
Does anybody say that? Like,
I hope not.
Does anybody really believe that? Okay, so
I would put Val Kilmer ahead of George Clooney as Batman.
Michael Keaton was in Batman and Batman Returns. Val Kilmer was in Batman Forever. George Clooney was in Batman and Robin.
Which was the one with like the Joker and the Jim Carrey as the Riddler?
That's Batman and Robin, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Freeze.
Okay.
Man, looking at that movie poster, the Riddler's not even on it. Uma Thurman is right. It's Uma Thurman.
Then is it the right one then?
Yeah, that's it.
They didn't put Jim Carrey on the poster.
Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry. That's Val Kilmer's. That's
Jim
Batman
Carrey.
Forever.
You're not going
to it's my bad. My bad. That's Batman Forever with that's also with Tommy Lee Jones.
I like that one a lot. Yeah, I
mean, actually
I think that one's silly. I think Poison Ivy's in there too.
That's Batman and Robin.
I'm mixing all these up. Yeah. But I do like Jim Carrey is the Joker, and then what's his name? You said Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. Yeah, I don't know. I like that one.
Last thing on the subject of movies, I watched, I don't know if you saw me tweet about this, for the first time ever, like in my life over the weekend, Pulp Fiction. I'd never seen it before.
What are you doing?
I mean, that's what all my friends said.
What did you think about it?
So I'll admit that like it was at an inherent disadvantage for me because like it's so much later, right? Like, and then I've heard all these things and like there's all this like hype that's like built up. So like it didn't live up to that. Just again, it was an impossible task. It was fine. You know what I mean? Like, and I've always seen a lot of Quentin movies. Like speaking of Uma, I'd seen Kill Bill, Glorious Bastards, right? Like all these other movies that were great. So it was fine. I mean, I more than anything, I'm just satisfied that like I understand all the pop culture references now. So
I've been on a bit of a guilty pleasure kick of watching clips from movies. You know how so I'm not a TikTok guy as much, but I'll watch YouTube Shorts, which is I guess like the same thing but different.
hmm
And I'll for some reason in my suggested I have a big thing going of Tarantino movies between like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. And I
never
think
seen
I don't know.
Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, you should watch that. I feel like it's just almost it's almost like better for that format. Just like because there's really good dialogue. There's like the scenes are really good. Maybe not that the movie isn't good as a whole, but the scenes I think are especially good. Certain scenes, so when you're watching them just as scenes, you're like, wow, that was really enjoyable and cool, and you really I think you pick up on things that you might lose otherwise because your focus is on this bigger thing and it's your attention span is being stretched out as opposed to just this more sectioned off clip.
That's fine. And that's fair. That and like some of that though, like that's why I like the Royale with cheese stuff. Like I'm sure like it was super cool, like for somebody that saw it like whatever 25 years ago. But like for me, it was like, oh, that's the thing that everybody says.
Mm.
I watched Fight Club for the first time like 5 years ago, and for some reason I had never heard the his name is
Well, you're
Robert
breaking the
Paulson.
rule.
Well, sorry, but I
That's
had
the
never
first rule.
heard. I had obviously heard that before, but I had never heard that his name is Robert Paulson thing.
Mm.
And when that happened, that was such a cool scene. Like I was like, oh, this is awesome because like nobody had like built it up in my head. So yeah, maybe I'll watch Reservoir Dogs. I've also never seen Goodfellas.
Have you seen? I have also not seen Goodfellas. I'm behind on like any kind of those
hmm
Italian like mafia movies. I've seen The Godfather and The Godfather 2. They're very boring to me. Um, have you seen The Usual Suspects?
I have not.
Oh, RJ, go ahead. I literally watch that movie before anything else. Just watch. You have to watch. That's one of my favorite movies, The Usual Suspects. Watch it. You'll like it.
We'll see.
Watch it.
If you
Trust me.
tell me what streaming platform is on, it's on. My odds of
Someone's
watching it go up.
don't spoil the ending for RJ. It's a really that you have to. You can't. You have to watch it. It's really good.
Last thing, and then we'll leave. I hate when and I understand actually Aaron Rodgers was the person I first heard come up with the 24-hour rule when it came to like television shows. He would talk about that with Game of Thrones. Like you can talk about it after it's been 24 hours. At that point, like somebody that's a reasonable amount of time to give someone to watch like an episode or something. But I hate when shows or movies spoil other ones for people. So like I've still never seen The Sixth Sense. But when I watched 50 First Dates for the first time, which I'm sure you're familiar with the plot of, that Drew Barrymore's character like relives the same day over and over, and she watches that movie. She's walking like out of the kitchen one day, and I'm not gonna say it because I'm not that person, but like she says something about the movie that I'm like, oh, well, I can never watch this now.
I feel like The Sixth Sense was spoiled for everyone. I feel like there's no one who hasn't had The Sixth Sense spoiled for them, other than if they just don't know the movie exists. If you've heard of The Sixth Sense, I feel like even if you haven't seen it, you've had it spoiled for you.
All right, let's get out of here.
It's a big thing.
As we do, Brandon, tell us your favorite movie ever that is not The Usual Suspects.
Ever is tough. There's a lot of different ways I can do with that. Most enjoyable movie or movie I think is the best ever.
It's your question, man. You can do whatever you want.
I'm gonna say, and it's coming back to theaters soon, as of October 20th. It's The Nightmare Before Christmas.